All are requested to be seated. Okay. Start. Good morning to one and all. We have gathered here today to celebrate 25 years journey that our organization has proudly taken upon. We welcome you all to the first session in the series of sessions conducted for AdCore IP 2023. Over the years, NCCR has been monitoring the shoreline changes along the Indian coast using numerical modeling, remote sensing, and GIS tools to determine the status of coast and to identify the hotspot regions. Field surveys are conducted regularly to monitor the status of the coastal structures, shoreline geomorphology, and sediments. Recent surveys include the coast of Kerala and Goa, and the same for Tamil Nadu is underway. We have also successfully designed the coastal protection measures in the identified hotspot regions and successfully implemented projects at locations such as Puducherry and Chelanam, Kerala. In line with this, we call upon the first session of AdCore IP 2023 on shoreline management and coastal protection open. We once again welcome you all to the session. We now call upon the chair of the session, Dr. Prakash Chauhan, Director of NRSC, to the stage. We also welcome Dr. MVS sir, to Director of NCCR, Dr. M.V. Ramnamurthy sir, to join the chair. Dr. Prakash, Director of NRSC, is an expert in applications of space technology, including remote sensing technology for geosciences, atmospheric and oceanic process studies, natural resources management for ocean and land resources. His work on Chandrayaan-2 IIRS spectrometer data has resulted in an ambiguous detection of water and OH particles on the surface of Moon. His findings have conclusively established the presence of water molecules at different locations on the Moon. He has been awarded several prestigious honors, including Professor P.R. Pisharadi Memorial Award for the year 2004, Hari Om Ashram Petrid Dr. Vikram Sarabhai Research Award for the year 2009, and Satish Dhawan Award in 2016. We welcome you, sir. Dr. M.V. Ramnamurthy is a scientist G and director of National Center for Coastal Research, NCCR, and also the mission director for Deep Ocean Mission with the Ministry of Earth Sciences, Government of India. Throughout his career, he has successfully led and demonstrated various research projects such as coastal protection works at Puducherry and Chelanam and the development of urban flooding warning systems for Mumbai and Chennai. He has also provided technical expertise and services to the state governments in resolving coastal complex issues. With an impressive career spanning over 32 years, he has amassed extensive experience in the fields of coastal research and ocean technology. Dr. Ramnamurthy has honored with the National Award for Ocean Technology in 2021 for his significant contributions in this field. We welcome you, sir, to this function.
I'd like to introduce the panelists of the session to the stage. Dr. Purnima Jelihal. Dr. Purnima Jelihal holds a distinguished position of Scientist G and serves as an esteemed group head for the Energy and Freshwater Group at National Institute of Ocean Technology, Chennai. With a solid academic background, she completed her bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Bombay University and subsequently pursued her master's and PhD degrees at Duke University in North Carolina, United States. Throughout her professional journey, Dr. Jelihal has exhibited a remarkable passion for research and an unwavering commitment to advancing the understanding and exploration of complex challenges related to energy and freshwater in ocean context. Dr. Jelihal, unparalleled dedication to her work and her adept leadership skill has undoubtedly played a pivotal role in elevating the achievements of Energy and Freshwater Group at NIOT. Under her guidance, the group have actively engaged in transformative projects addressing critical issues at the intersection of energy, water, and ocean sciences. Welcome, ma'am. Moving on to the next panelist, we have Dr. R.S. Kankara, sir, Dr. R.S. Kankara is currently serving as Scientist G and Director at the esteemed Central Water and Power Research Station in Pune, a position he has held since February 2022. His academic journey includes obtaining an MSc and MPhil in Mathematics from Agra University, followed by a PhD in Coastal Management from Anna University. With an impressive research career spanning over 3 decades, Dr. Kankara embarked on his professional journey as a research assistant at CWPRS from 1993 to 99. Subsequently, in 99, he joined the National Center for Coastal Research as Scientist C. In recognition of his exceptional expertise and accomplishments, he was appointed as Director of CWPRS in 2022 through a deputation. Additionally, he has played a pivotal role in over 25 technical reports and has delivered over 50 talks and lectures in various workshops, symposiums, and training courses. I welcome you, sir. The next panelist is Professor Jaykumar Seelam. Dr. Jaykumar Seelam holds a position of Chief Scientist at Ocean Engineering Department of the National Institute of Oceanography, Goa. He earned his bachelor's degree in civil engineering from Sri Venkateswara College of Engineering, Tirupati, followed by a master's degree in ocean engineering from IIT Madras. He further pursued his doctoral studies in civil ocean engineering at the University of Queensland, Brisbane, Australia. His areas of professional interest encompass coastal processes, coastal engineering, numerical modeling, environmental impact assessment, ocean energy, estuarine dynamics, beach process, beach quality, remote sensing application, pollutant transport, storm surges, tsunamis, and the impacts of extreme events on coast, and among others. Dr. Seelam has played a significant mentoring role guiding and supervising the work of more than 23 students undertaking internships, dissertations, and projects under his tutelage. Welcome, sir. The next panelist is Professor S.A. Sanasiraj. Dr. S.A. Sanasiraj currently holds an esteemed position of professor at the Department of Ocean Engineering, IIT Madras. He commenced his academic journey as a Senior Project Officer, Grade 1 at the Center for Industrial Consultancy and Sponsored Research, IIT Madras, refining his skills and expertise. Following his earlier career experiences, Dr. Sanasiraj pursued further academic growth as a postdoctoral fellow at the National University of Singapore and subsequently served as a research assistant at NSU for a significant duration. In 2003, he joined IIT Madras as assistant professor, marking the beginning of his association with the institution. Dr. Sanasiraj is renowned for his significant contributions to the field of ocean engineering with a focus on several key research areas. Notably, his major interests revolve around the study of breaking wave impact on piles and vertical walls, wave data assimilation, and the non-linear free surface wave simulation using finite element method and smooth particle hydrodynamics techniques. I welcome you, sir. The next panelist is Dr. N.P. Kurian. Dr. N.P. Kurian is a highly accomplished professional with a wealth of experience in coastal process studies spanning over 45 years. He commenced his career as an instructor in oceanography at the University of Mangalore from 1975 to 80, after earning his MSc in oceanography from QSAT. In 1980, Dr. Kurian joined the Center for Earth Science Studies as a Scientist B and steadily rose through the ranks to eventually become the director of NCCR in 2010. During his tenure as director, CES was renamed to the National Center of Earth Science Studies and he became its inaugural director. Following his retirement from service in 2015, Dr. Kurian has remained actively engaged in academic realm, serving on various academic bodies and major committees. Moreover, he has extended his expertise to provide consultancy services, particularly in formulating Shoreline management plan for several states. I welcome all the panelists to the first session. We request the panelists to present for about 15 minutes. We kindly request our chair to take over the session.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon to you all, and welcome back to this technical session, which is going to be on the very important topic as far as NCCR activities are concerned on shoreline management and coastal protections. Before I formally start, talking about this panel, as well as open the panel for further discussions, let me first congratulate Director NCCR Dr. Ramanamurthy ji and all the colleagues of NCCR on this occasion of 25 years journey of NCCR from ICMAM to today what we stand as a national institution. I have been in some way or another way part of this journey, we have seen these institutions growing from outside, and I have spent almost 3 decades in Department of Space, and we have, from the very beginning interactions, especially I started my work in coastal projects along with Dr. Shailesh Nayak in Space Application Center. So we had very long association, and from satellite perspective, we have been always, interacting and providing a lot of valuable inputs to the activities of NCCR. So I feel very happy and proud to be here today on this occasion. And thank you very much for inviting me here, Professor Murthy. Now coming back to this particular panel discussion, as all of you are aware, and it has been told in the morning session also, the shoreline and is a very high energy zone area. It's a very dynamic, earth system process which happens in this confluence zone where the oceans meet the land. And any highly dynamical system, if we have to study and understand, we need to focus on 3 major important areas. One is, of course, the modeling, another is simulations, and then we also need to have observations. So in all these 3 components, the NCCR has played a very important role. And today, among our panelists, we have experts, those who have been dealing with these 3 issues. And we would like to hear their views about what kind of observational systems today we have all along the Indian coastline, including the remote sensing or satellite-based in situ platforms, how these observations can go into numerical models so that we can do forecasting. And based on those forecasts and simulations, what kind of actions we can take on ground so that the coastal protection measures can be taken appropriately considering the local conditions at different locations in our coastlines. We also have a long-term threat in view of climate variability as oceans are warming and sea levels are rising, which has been documented very nicely using long-term space-based altimeter data sets. What impact this rising sea is going to have in different parts of the coastline. It also not only depends on the coastal geomorphology, the orientation of the coast, rock types, and morning we were also hearing about the subsidence processes, which also can be monitored using ground-based as well as space-borne systems. We also have a threat of, the seawater ingression into the freshwater aquifers in the coastal line, which is also a very serious issue. So I am sure that all the very versatile panel which we have today over here, they will be able to share their views about the current status of affairs and then in what direction we should move so that we can think of making our coastline climate resilient, as well as the coastal zone will remain also protected in terms of various other disasters. So before I invite the first panelist, I will request Director of NCCR, Dr. Ramanamurthy, also to share his views, and then we can start with the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, I think, for your kind words. In fact, you have been associated with NCCR for quite some time and then helping us in the remote sensing aspects of that. But I have a short presentation. I think I will, with that 5 minutes, I'll tell, so instead of telling on that. I won't take much time because other panels have to speak on that. Basically, to set the context on the coastal erosion and shoreline management, that work is being done in India by the many institutes. I think we have here Dr. Chandramohan, who has been pioneer in many of the areas for that, like the Dr. Shanai, who has been working on the coastal process, and many of the panelists. So this is about the coastal system and benefits what we derive across the Indian coast. We try to map what are all the major coastal features which we have along the east coast and then both west coast of India. We have mangroves, sand spits, and then dunes, lake ecosystem. When we come to the down, we have estuaries. On the west coast, if we start seeing for that is a peculiar characteristics in terms of cliffs, mud flats, and that's how these ecosystems have a distinct characteristic in terms of providing a support system for the coastal areas as well as for the human habitat. This is the one of work which is done by coastal erosion along the entire Indian coast. In fact, this work was started by Dr. Kankara. Now he is in schedule Paris. The shoreline changes is the one first attempt which was made by, of course, many other institutes have also done the work on that, like NCCR, SAC. But what we try to make a difference on that is high resolution maps at 1:25,000 scale, which were prepared for entire Indian coast to basically to classify how much of area is getting eroded. Surprisingly, from 2007 onward, there is accelerated erosion all along the Indian coast. And then we all know that sea level rise and then these extreme events are going to cause a major threat for the future. In fact, not only in India, but across the many places, either in Australia and other places, all these cliffs are completely subjected to the severe erosion. But when we look at the causes, we have extreme waves, cyclone storms, sea level rise, and then change in the monsoon cycle. Rajan sir is there. I think if we see in the Arabian Sea, earlier we never had such kind of long-standing cyclones in the west coast of India. But now, especially during November, December, that is a time where we will have a beach build-up in the west coast. But when we have a cyclone in that area, this erosion is being aggravated by the system further. But of course, we have many man-made activities, so many number of ports along the Indian coast, coastal structures. Damming of the river is one of the major impact, and of course, most important one is the dredging of the tidal inlets. This shows the cyclone and then changes in the west coast of India. So when I used to work with that Korean and then K.B. Thomas, so we see a lot of change when we started working in the west coast of India. The number of depressions have gone up, cyclonic intensity has gone up. These are all some of the graph which shows how west coast is having a severe erosion compared to the earlier date. It doesn't mean that east coast doesn't have, but we also have in the east coast, but it's a different phenomena for that. When we try to put up various components of the systems, how it can contribute to the sea level erosion. We have a sea level rise, tidal range. When we go to the northern parts of either east coast or west coast, the increased tidal range that has a different coastal process altogether. And then storm surge whenever we have a cyclone for that. This is the picture which shows about the, most of us know about Mumbai. In the low tide, how it we can see there, and then once we have high tide, this is the water level which comes and hits on the top of that. But the last picture is the future scenario. If you don't have any proper adaptability for such kind of areas, what is going to have is most of these things will be submerged for that. I will show you in some of the slides in the west coast what has happened for that. These are all the changes which was made using a 30 years data, 2018, that these maps have been updated to 2022. Some of the hotspots along the Indian coast. This information is going to the all state governments for their own mitigation plan for that. In fact, there is a talk that I think in NDMA, coastal erosion also should be declared as a natural disaster so that they can take up that work in emergency basis for that. This shows about the shore protection work done by NCCR as well as by NIOT. I think Dr. Purnima will tell more about that. A lot of work has been done on the shore protection by both these institutes, but also by NSS when we are doing for the west coast of India. When we have a port development, it is supposed to have some kind of impact on other areas that we should be aware. Whenever we build a port, most of the dredging which we do on the inner channel or in the coastal area, that sand is being disposed into the offshore. So the sand is permanently lost to the system, and then we have a more problem from the port-based development further. This shows a number of structures which we had it in Chennai coast, but of course now it is almost like it has come to the equilibrium stage at most of the places, but we have almost 3 ports in the distance of 30 kilometers. Is it really, we need that many number of ports in the short distance is the question when we are thinking about the future coastal protection measure for that. But what fishermen wanted is a beach like this. This is the picture in Pondicherry. They wanted a natural beach landing craft could come there and then they go for the fishing. But today I don't know how many places we have that kind of natural beaches. Most of the places we are there with hard seawalls only. This shows about the hotspot location in the Tamil Nadu, which has been done. Right now, NCCR has been preparing a shoreline management plan for both Tamil Nadu as well as Kerala, which will be completed by another 3 months' time. In fact, if you want to do a future protection or whatever facilities which they want to do, this plan will also tell us go and no-go areas or what to be done for the system. And there are so many coastal protection measures, like many of us know, revetment, seawalls, clients and all, but each one it has advantages and limitations also on the when we build these structures for that. Unless it is warranted, it is not advisable to do for that. This is some of the statistics of the Tamil Nadu. Almost in some of the districts are completely covered with the seawalls or grines for that, where there is a severe erosion on the system for that. Then we try to map the structures along the area, and Kanyakumari is the area where we have almost 48% is covered with structures. Similarly, Tiruvallur in the north Chennai, this is also almost 50% we have only by port and harbour structures and then coastal protection structures for that. This is the one project which is done by, I think when I was there in NIOT, it was there with the Pondicherry beach nourishment, and still now the beach is there, and then they are continuing this process of beach management in the Pondicherry court. This how this particular structure has been launched to the system, and then it is kept in the system for that. The beach nourishment is one of the soft measure what we can adapt wherever it is possible when they are doing harbour dredging for that. This shows the before and after the beach in the Pondicherry. I will skip that. Now, whenever we have this kind of structures on the other side, we are going to have a different wave climate depending on the site conditions for that. We need to have a site-specific solutions based on the orientation of the coast and the wave climate in that area. This is the Chellanam is one of the area where before monsoon and during the monsoon, the area is to get flooded. And then we had a hard structure which is designed, and then now, can you play the video? Yes. This was the situation in every year. I think last 2 years after this seawall was constructed, there is no flooding on the other areas for that. In fact, Kerala government wanted to have a mileage from this particular one. Now almost 8 kilometers of coastal stretch is now completely prevented from the flooding due to this. So this is the one classic example where we don't have a space. We need to have a hard structure for that, where seawall is only the one area, one solution which can be there for that. And similarly, some places we don't need really a coastal protection structure. So a small intervention of opening a mouth itself can prevent the coastal erosion, and then you will not have much problem on the system. That's all from my side, because we have other panels to speak on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramanamurthy, for a wonderful brief presentation highlighting, the issues as well as, the mitigation measures which are being done at various places. I think it has correctly set the tone for further discussions. So I would like to invite Dr. Purnima. She is at NIOT Chennai to speak about this topic and also share her views on the issue of shoreline management and coastal protection. Over to you, madam.
Good morning. Before I begin, I just want to, on behalf of Director NIOT and NIOT staff, I want to extend my heartiest congratulations to Dr. Ramanamurthy and his team at NCCR for this wonderful milestone that we are celebrating today. 25 years is quite a long time. You have passed the teens, and you have also shown a lot of progress in the last over 2 decades. So I wish you all the very best, and hope you continue to grow in this fashion in the coming years, and wish you all the scientists also of NCCR great productive years ahead. So I'll just actually Dr. Ramanamurthy has already, this is probably going to be the thread of everybody's talks today, but what I'll present today is largely, NIOT is a technology development institute, so we focus more on the engineering and technological solutions and mitigation for the coastal problems. So though this is a large spectrum of what we do, right from the inception of NIOT, coastal engineering was one of the 3 programs that the institute started with, along with energy and the deep sea technology, the deep sea mining program at that time. So having said that, basically we divide in NIOT the engineering activities in these kind of 6 subsets. The feasibility studies, and I don't want to read it out because of lack of time, and this is going to be oft repeated during these 2 days. However, the numerical modeling and the engineering design and analysis, these are going to be the focus, and this is what we also have developed expertise in. So actually the earlier picture shows you the number of activities and projects that has been handled by the coastal engineering group of NIOT over the last 3 decades. There are over 250 consultancy projects that were done and mitigation measures evolved and also implemented. I will however focus today on what has been done in the last 2 years, and basically this is all known importance, and I'll skip this. So again, causes of coastal erosion has been spoken about and will be spoken about in these next 2 days. However, to put a focus on the engineering aspects of it, essentially we have the natural activities which cause it in terms of coastal processes, and of course today the oft-spoken thing of the impact of climate change. However, the anthropogenic activities like the construction of coastal structures, destruction of natural barriers, damming of rivers, and also mining, all these are also anthropogenic causes which can lead to coastal erosion. So NIOT approach has been always, and we are trying to fine-tune that further in terms of reconnaissance of the site, data collection, analysis, model studies, detailed engineering design, and then finally we also help with the field execution or monitor field execution, and then many times we have offered to also do the performance studies at the end after the implementation is done. So the coastal erosion mitigation measures that we have been seeing all these years are in the form of groins, training walls, sea walls, etc. And there are soft solutions like sand nourishment, as Dr. Ramanmurthy mentioned. And there are also today hybrid solutions which are combinations of hard and soft. So just briefly for 5 minutes, I'll talk to you about some of the case studies that we have done which tell you how we have evolved, how we evolve in a project and implement it till the end. This is actually not done in the last 2 years. It was done in 2015. This is a Visakhapatnam. I think he also briefly showed it. But I just wanted to show these pictures just to put something in perspective for the end of the talk. So a lot of studies were done. These are the data was analyzed, models were done, several mitigation strategies were also suggested. The top left shows an engineering design that was also proposed. In the end, a simple solution of nourishment was done, and dredging, and then final nourishment. And of course, it has helped, and this was the beautiful beach and the improvement that you can see down here. But just keep this in the back of the mind when we proceed, that these are soft, temporary solutions. We don't know what will happen to this in the next cyclone. So to put that in that context, I move ahead. Ramayapatnam, actually, I think Dr. Ramanmurthy was involved in this. This was the nature-based solution. And finally, opening of the river mouth by dredging, and then nourishment. Finally, with a small training wall, finally the beach was, it has been restored. So this is something I'd like to talk about. There is near Konark Eco Retreat Center, and that shows, the reddish portion shows the actual resort. Now the Odisha state government was like, it's really keen to keep this resort always operational. There has been severe erosion at that place, and therefore, the resort cannot function as it is supposed to function. So they came to NIOT, and so a lot of studies were done. These are like pictures of where the mouth was opening at various times of the, with all the satellite images. So throughout, from like way back as 2003, the data was analyzed and then studied. And basically, we finally suggested a small revetment and along with nourishment, and also indicated the dredge area. You can see that the revetment was actually, when we went there, this picture is something that it was nearly built. Today it has been completed. But even as we went there and it had been built, the beach has formed, and near the resort, it has like improved and the beach has started forming. So essentially the nourishment also has been helping, and the revetment has really been working well. So while we were there, we also noticed that there is further different areas to the south of it where there is a lot of activity, wave activity, and those need to be protected as well. So we have given further solutions and they have been implementing it, and a lot of improvement has been seen. So here you can see that the revetment and how the beach has been formed on the bottom right corner. Before I move to this one, this is actually a damaged coastal structure. So this is a fishing harbor, a breakwater in a fishing harbor in Gujarat. And this was already constructed, but even in an ordinary storm condition, it was like really overtopping. There was a lot of damage. In fact, after this damage, mitigation measures were suggested by us, but recently when we went after the recent cyclone, it has in fact worsened, and it is really like needs a serious rehabilitation. So we went and did a lot of underwater survey with special 3D sonar kind of a new equipment, and we got to a complete feel of how even the tetrapods, in what condition and what damage has occurred because of the overtopping on the breakwater. So after the damage assessment, we have actually gone several times to the field, and we have finally even validated it by a physical model. And then finally, the actual design has been submitted to them, and the work is now going to be executed at site. So the point of telling this is, even after the structures are built, how do we mitigate something if a natural disaster occurs, and whether there's an under design, and what are the reasons for structures failing so quickly even after they are built. This is something that will come at the end of my talk as an important point. Again, the Gopalpur coast in Odisha, so I think I'll not talk too much. Basically, there was originally some training walls, then a port was built, huge erosion was found, groins were suggested, the erosion worsened. So NIOT also worked on this, and then finally in the area of interest, like basically with nourishment, the coastline has improved there. So these are the changes from the satellite imagery. You can see now that the beach did form post the nourishment. So these are the just snapshots of some of the case studies, some of the funded projects. So the Odisha government actually has been so happy with all the implementations of NIOT that we have actually signed an MOU now with them. So whenever there's a shoreline problem, they're approaching NIOT for a complete end-to-end solution from the analysis till the implementation and also post-implementation. But the ministry-funded projects are also going hand in hand so that we can improve our actual performance when we are doing the individual site-specific solutions. So we are working on these several activities like the shores, the coastal inlet program. I'll just briefly talk about those before we close. So this is shores, or the shoreline response evaluation system. So this is an important activity. Whatever NCCR has been doing, they have over the years collected huge amounts of data. There is a lot of mapping that they have done, a lot of understanding of the entire coast of India. Now, how do you marry this with the final problems, issues, and the solutions and the implementation? So this is why we thought we should do this. It's an expert system that we are developing, and it basically takes the data and we understand what is actually happening in a particular locality. We study various possible mitigatory solutions, and then the idea is that a state government engineer who wants to understand in his location which measure should you adopt and which measure in what way, where should you do it, This, in the end, is going to be a comprehensive solution which will take you from the beginning till the end. It's in the beginning stages of, we are just starting to do the work. A lot of effort has been put into the shores from the data at Goa and also at some other locations. But we are building on it, and soon we hope to come up with a global, holistic kind of an expert system. So this is essentially the small block diagram. We take the data, then we have after the collection of the data, we input the data also in this whole system. The numerical model studies for the various scenarios is also implemented, so you have an idea which one performs better. And then finally, it's basically an interactive tool for regulators and planners and engineers of the state government who can utilize it and see what they should do as a mitigatory factor. So this is a bit challenging. It is a very large amount of work that we have taken up, but it's probably going to have a lot of implication in the future for shoreline management. The other thing that we think is basically, as I come back to that problem of the breakwater, which I showed you earlier, it was seriously under-designed. We found that now after we looked at all the reports. The reason is because probably environmental data are not readily available. So long-term measurements are very important. Satellite imagery is very important. And therefore, at this point in time, though we have the Data Boy program, and in deep water, certainly this cannot be done. This is meant to complement the already existing Mood Boy network. So we are trying to put fixed observation platforms in 3 locations that we have selected. The idea is that these are easier to maintain, clearly. They're in shallower waters where Mood Buoys are difficult to put. Along with coastal observation sensors and instruments, we plan to make it a holistic thing with all NIOT requirements, including acoustics and other sensors. So this is going to be the first of a kind. We have started work on it, and we are going to put up these 3 platforms in 3 locations. And then we have the coastal inlet program. This is very important. I don't have to explain to this erudite gathering about why we need to bother with the coastal inlets. Just to put it in perspective, basically it is like violent for Indian navigation links, and the exchange of water, whether it is sediment or nutrients from the sea to inland, all these are important from a holistic perspective, and of course I won't go into these details. So we have taken up this ICRP program. We have already had brainstorming sessions with Tamil Nadu and Kerala people, and they have provided us a lot of data. They are helping us. We have chosen a few inlets which are prioritized, and we are studying them to see what are the mitigatory issues, which are the places where interventions are required. So this will again be a holistic thing for the entire Tamil Nadu coast, for the entire Kerala coast. We are going state by state, and the work is progressing pretty well with a lot of measurements being done currently. So in the context of this, we have provided a solution for a sustainable opening of the Ennur Creek. And again, there were, I think, okay, so in any case, basically after dredging and then draining walls, we have ensured a sustainable opening. Sorry, this is... Okay, last 1 minute, I just want to close this. We also have the coastal radar network, and this is being handled by Dr. Jenna. We have got a lot of data right now for the HF radar. And so this is the last thing that I want to actually focus on. So the challenges in coastal engineering, basically there's a lot of non-availability of historical data, and historical data really matters when you are going to manage a coast. Now that's why I had shown Visakhapatnam for the second bullet. There's an immediate solution that we tend to do and long-term solutions. Now immediate solutions can be cost effective, however they do not last long. So as designers and engineers, we need to understand which one has to be done at which point in time, whether the cost is important or you should not damage things further by making an intermediate solution. The implementation should be as per design. We have noticed in the breakwater that the implementation was not as per design, and that's why there has been failure. We definitely need to do post-implementation monitoring, and also the infrastructure for implementation also has to be readily available. So these are the challenges which impede proper coastal engineering technologies to be implemented at the coast. And this is my last slide. I was asked to give recommendations. So I think these are the important points. It's important to understand the historical behavior of the shoreline, depending on historical data and a lot of dependence on satellite imageries. You need to do a holistic model and not just, very specific with one small little location. There should be emphasis on soft solutions and working with nature, which is more desirable today in the context of also already existing problems due to climate change. And we really need to seriously look at efforts in this direction. And the solution should be implemented in totality to get the desirable outcomes. So with this as a note of thought for all of you, and I'm sure these are going to be discussed in the next few sessions. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Purnima, for providing a very extensive overview of the kind of work which has been done by NIOT in terms of coastal protection measures all along different locations at coastlines, and also to give a sense of what is to be done. And since you talked about historical data and satellite imageries provide a very valuable information, I would like to inform this August gathering that now as per part of the new geospatial policy and the space data policy, Government of India has decided to open all the satellite imageries, which is more than 5 meters spatial resolution, to public without any cost. So National Remote Sensing Center will be providing to all of you the all historical archive data, more than 5 meters spatial resolution, free of cost to all, including government as well as to the private sector people, and 30 centimeter and above historical data to government agencies free of cost. So this is what I thought I will announce. So probably we have a repository of more than 35 years of historical data, starting from old spot and Landsat missions. So probably you can make use of this for your studies. Thank you very much. Now may I call upon Dr. R.S. Kankaraji, who was earlier part of NCCR and now he is director at CWPRS, which is a very important organization in terms of civil engineering and and other, design structure, development activities. So over to you, Dr. Kankara.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I will place on record Dr. Ramanamurthy and entire NCCR team for completing 25 years. 22 years I was also part of the CWPRS. So I will be talking about the coastal protection and shoreline management. So in my 25 years of journey, 22 years I spent in CWPRS. So whatever knowledge I gained in CWPRS, that will be also part of my presentation, and what the role CWPRS is providing in coastal protection and shoreline management. Yeah. As we know, the coastal erosion, coastal protection is needed. We are having more than 7,500 kilometer long coastline. Variety of issues are there. Different type beaches are there. So complexity is too much. We know the erosion is happening due to natural processes and anthropogenic activities. Natural erosion is happening, accretion is happening, mapping programs are there. Do really we bother for that thing? That is the one thought we have to give it. Other thing is we require development. We are having 13 major ports, around 250 different type, other type of minor and intermediate ports, and lot of development in Sagarmala is happening. That is also having effect on the coastline. So we have to strike a balance between development and it should have the, whatever development is happening, coastal structures we are putting in the coastline, along the coastline, it should have the minimum impact. So considering these things in the mind, this coast becomes very complex. If it is a long-term thing, and it gives lot of development, lot of dams are being constructed. They are actually changing the sediment supply in the system along the coastline. Lot of construction is happening. So normally we say that it obstructs the natural flow of the sediment. So sediment transport becomes the important part of the any coastal protection work or shoreline management. India, at national perspective, from last 30 years back, Dr. Chandramohan Saab has done the littoral transport along the Indian coast that is being used in most of the coastal protection work along the Indian coast. He has updated for entire east coast recently. That is okay going on now, new designs, whatever being developed. But there is a need for very site-specific measurements of related to sediment transport, littoral transport, because it affects the coastline. For that, huge data is needed. Most of the observations are there beyond the surf zone. If we have to protect the coastal areas, data, still we are missing the data in the surf zone. A coastal engineer, it requires how much energy is being actually affecting the beach. So still we are having lot of approximation. So this slide talks about whatever the project we are at the tip of the iceberg for particularly coastal protection related aspects. We have our projects which are having different objectives, different aim, different mission. From that data, we use that data whatever useful for our designing the coastal structure. So huge data comes, like I have written, the ocean of the data will be there. Then we collect river of the expertise from that thing and few drop of the wisdom that we use when we are designing the coastal structures. That's what we might have seen. 20 years, 30 years old, some structures has been built along the Indian coast, which some of them are failed due to the various reasons. So coast is very complex. Prediction of the coast becomes very difficult. So there is a need, very concentrated effort are needed to have a very robust modeling system. Efforts are being made, site specific, but it requires more detailed effort. Issues related to coastal protection, engineers, they are having various issues, failure of structures. As I say, data is the main actually limitation here, particularly related to energy and sediment related things. Then another issue comes the cost. A big project, huge amount of the cost is required. Sometimes big projects are having, but around 40% of Indian coastline is eroding. And erosion management is the state subject. So they require temporary measures. So that is another issue that becomes cost and maintenance. Big project, environmental related aspects. So understanding the sediment transport becomes very important. Social and economic considerations, because our fishermen community, they require free access of the beach. Lot of structures are being constructed along the coast, so that also has to be considered. And new things are coming, climate change related aspects also. So all those things we put in the system. So that's what this need, a shoreline management, well-planned, organized structure should be there. For that, efforts are being made by NCCR. When we started doing, our former director, Dr. Subramanian Saab was mentioning morning, this NCCR earlier ICMEM was originated from World Bank project. That was the ICZM concept. When we were doing ICZM concept, we came to know even shoreline management related information is not available much. So this project we started in 10th plan. So for that understanding of the coastal process, we call the 5M approach: monitoring, modeling, measurements, and then management comes. So basically require the monsoon data is very important. That is most of time it is missing. Then coastal vulnerability related aspects and passing this information to the community and providing the solutions. So this is the actually coastal management information system we started doing at NCCR some time back. So it requires a historical data, current status, and future scenario. India, we are having very good database for historical data, current status, the shoreline mapping, it is being done in NCCR. That is every year being updated. But now actually need the predictive models. So some effort CWPR is also mentioning, and our team is mentioning, making here also. But this predictive model becomes a need of our to have a effective shoreline management plans. how it looks. So ultimately, if we have to manage the shoreline, it requires an integrated approach where all database should be there, modeling system should be there, and prediction system. Predicting the shoreline and any development is coming next 20, 30 years, that has to be put in the system, and what effect scenario that can be done from modeling. So the effort is being made for this. So present trend of coastal protection is, it needs need-based. As I was telling, it is a state subject. Now I am in CWPRS, I see that thing. Every year monsoon minimum 30 to 40 requests comes from various state governments, and we provide solution to them. So that becomes the need-based, and it requires temporary measures. So mostly, lot of hard structures are being suggested, but there is a focus. A big project, it should be the hybrid approach should be there, and wherever the sediment is available, there we can provide soft solutions. But it looks very good to provide soft solution, but from where the sand has to come, that is the question. If we do a good sediment transport model, from that we can assess the availability of the sediment. Now a lot of geosynthetic related new materials are coming. That also present trend is there. Other thing is there, availability of the stone. So we are working to look alternative material. Now a lot of steel production is there in India. Steel waste is there. So we are doing some experiment using the steel waste, whether we can use as an alternative of the stone. And whatever these structures comes, whether it is major ports, minor ports, or coastal protection, CWPRS works in various aspects of water resources and coastal engineering. Just here I will touch upon two things. Once in DPR, the design engineers, they have designed some structure, whether how this structure will behave, whether it will work properly or not. So we use these random sea waves. We are having two random sea waves. One is 120 meter long, other one is 90 meter long, and 4 meter wide. We can generate random waves, regular waves, how it look. Then based on that thing, how much forces are there. We use the physical modeling approach, and these are the dynamic models. So prototype model will be there. We design the structures and we test those structures, how it will behave. Can you click this one? So here just we generate the wave. So for that, whatever the data is there from field, it will just actually field things will be simulated in the model before designing the breakwater. And the structure also, just we put that structure and just we see that how it is performing. And any midterm correction is needed, those corrections just we provide. Putting those things, we test those actually structure in our models, then it is going for implementation. So this is the example for Ullal Beach. We do the modeling. This was the World Bank project. Ministry of Jal Shakti has implemented this project. We have 4 inshore berms and 2 north and south mid-sea near-shore berm were projected. And we tested these things and it was implemented, funding by the ADB, and how you can see that how based on the inshore berms are functioning. And this was the one successful project. Like that, in last 7 decades, almost 700 projects has been done all along the Indian coastline and some abroad projects also. These are the few examples. Like seawall has been suggested at different places in India. You can see the Marine Drive also, the whatever seawall is there, you all might have visited. That also has been designed by CWPRS. And we are looking now new, because stones are less, so some innovative approach, how best these stones can be used. So different approaches we are using, and we are testing this thing and providing the economical solutions to the state government wherever it is required. Now what we are working towards, so slowly just going from hard structure to soft structure wherever is possible, but site-specific study is required. Wherever that site-specific coastal protection is needed, sediment is not available, you have to go for hard structures. Now Ministry of Jal Shakti has developed the soft ladder under the ADB project. So the soft ladder, it goes from hard to the soft, and analyzing the site specific conditions, appropriate suitable method, just it is being adopted in new projects, and we are promoting these things through capacity building to the various state governments. What is needed, because we are developing the actually blue economy is the future, our thing, and all infrastructure is there all along the coast. Climate change impact, we are thinking in next decade around 30 to 40 centimeters sea level will rise. Wave climate is changing. So some effort has been made under this ADB project at 50-meter contour in 2100. What will be the wave scenario? How much was sea level rise? This data is available at 50-meter contour. So we are translating this data from 50-meter to site specific wherever the new structures are coming. This is the beginning, but lot of work has to be done. A lot of research also is needed. If these things we can translate at 10-meter water depth, if we can do site specific also, this will be a great, very useful data for coastal engineers, those who are involved in coastal protection and shoreline management. With this thing.
Thank you, Dr. Panikkar, for a very nice overview about the work which is being done at CWPRS, and earlier what kind of measurements and historical analysis for shoreline change work which has been initiated at NCCR. Now I would like to invite Professor Jayakumar, who is from NIO Goa, and I request him to provide his views on shoreline management and coastal protection aspects.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me place on record congratulations to Dr. Ramnamurthy, Director NCCR, and Team NCCR for celebrating this 25 years of their journey. In fact, their journey started with NIO, I will say. Dr. BRS and MVR both came to NIO for the first project of ICMAM for Gulf of Kutch. So we have been working together for the past 25 years. That's our relationship between NCCR, our ICMAM PD, and NIO. In fact, I think I should recognize now my mentor and then senior most person, I will say Dr. Chandramohan, who have been very instrumental in bringing out wave atlas for India from the ship's observations as well as littoral transport, and his student Dr. Jana, who has been working on these things. I'll take just a few minutes to because in this gathering, almost all of us have been working together for the past 3 decades, and it will be repetition if you see our slides. So it's not that we copied from them, but then it's like it's the same thing when you say coast. Inspired by. It's not inspired. It's like I'm the 4th author, so they would have taken my slides and then put there. Right. So we are talking about coastal management and all. So basically now anybody will say coastal management, they straight away go to protection. So when you say protection, from what we want protection, it's mostly they'll say it's from the coastal erosion. But any erosion protection measures again triggers some kind of issues on the coast. So that's what we'll known as interventions. So any interventions again leads to modifications to the ambient process. So it's like a cycle. You put something, it changes. Again, you try to do something, it changes. So our aim as engineers or mitigation measures or managers is to see that whatever we do, it's minimal. The effect is minimal. It's not zero, but it's minimal. There are many challenges what we have with the measurements and monitoring programs. If you talk about remote sensing, yes, we know we get very good coverage spatially, and in platform changes we'll get, but then there's an issue with the volumes. Okay, now with good satellites, we are getting including the slopes as well. One aspect of cloud cover, when you want to use optical, then we don't have issues with the monsoon data. Now Director NRSC said that yes, all will be available, satellites up to 30 centimeters to 5 meters to National Institute. So we'll see much more research outputs coming out in terms of shoreline changes. So when you come to physical measurements, there are issues again. We cannot do it for a long period, and it's highly manpower requirements are there. Here we get the volumes, but again, it depends on the person, depends on the project. It's a different thing. From NIO being one of the oldest institute here in terms of oceanography, we have been monitoring specific coasts, wherein we at Goa we have I think beach profiles right we have go back to 90s, so almost like 30 years of profiles are there. Not all the places, but at least some locations we have. So maybe it's a good idea for us to check with the satellite images, old ones, and then see whether work can be progressed in that. It's a time-consuming process, yes, but we need to do it. Coming to the LIDAR or photos, this again is expensive, and I know NCCR is working on that aspect. And already from Cochin, for Kerala coast, we have done. We have been part of the drone-based surveys. It's faster than manual measurements. High resolution is there, but again, when you look for periodic monitoring, it's going to be tough. The one more aspect which I raised, it's not that I raised it, it's there out in that is people who are using satellite imageries, they take one particular line, whereas who are on the coast managers, they use some other line. So which line is the shoreline? So that's another is a major issue. I think that's mostly resolved by many of us, but then it has to be translated onto the ground. My previous speakers have already mentioned about different issues or different areas where we need on the beaches. Problems are there. Then this is one example I want to give when to talk about shoreline change or erosion rates. Each one has got their own way of working using the satellite imageries, and then again the time frames differ. If you take this 1993 till 2022, we get a different rates. But if you take it one decade, it's a different rate. So it's not static. So any shoreline change atlas, what you have is to be taken with a pinch of salt, that it is for that specific period. We cannot take that as a Bible and say this is the erosion rate, and then this is where erosion is. So please don't do that. So it should be looked at in a holistic way, and from place to place it differs. What I want to show here again is on the left, if you see it's the same image. If you look at the linear regression rate, you see erosion to the south, so down of this one. But if you look at the north figure, we see endpoint rate, there it shows accretion. So which one to take? So there are issues with this kind of analysis. So whoever is taking managers, please be careful when you talk about the erosion rates in this one. Same thing with another South Goa region. Very well we can see clear changes. One method says it is accretion, other method says it is erosion. So you should be very careful when you take all this information and use it for any mitigation measures or management issues. Okay. Yes, we know it is written as 7,500 kilometers coastline, but again, in CMI's Jal Shakti CPDAC meetings, Indian Navy is saying that it's more than 10,000 kilometers shoreline. So there is an issue going on, so we need to look at that part. New islands have been considered, and then Navy have said that they walked every inch of the coastline, that's why it has gone up. Okay, so there's Dr. Kankara mentioned different variable coasts are there, morphology is different. So if water measures is applicable for one coast is not applicable for the other coast. We should be very careful with that. I know some politicians came, we want Maldives model. We want this model to be filled up here. And now I know being in Goa politicians wanted the Dutch model, sand engine they want for coastal erosion in Goa. We are working on that part as well. So it's not easy. Yes, Dr. Kankara mentioned about different administrative jurisdictions. We have central, state and local. Being on the field, we know there are issues. If you go on the beach and we want to measure a profile, the fisherman come and says, no, you cannot do it. It is my land. It is my property. Who has given you authority to do any survey? Any letter from the state doesn't work. Any letter from the government, central government doesn't work. It should be from the local panchayat, from that particular MLA, then only it works. So these are the issues on ground what we are facing right now. In terms of jurisdiction, yes, that's another major topic. Like Ministry of Jal Shakti is having a major program of CMIS, Coastal Management Information System, in which we are part of that. We are working together with the CWPRS and IIT Bombay. We have been, if in fact what Dr. Kankara showed is last slide, the ADB one, in fact that figure comes from us, which we have worked for the ADB project. There are many projects NIO we have been involved right from they said ICMAM started with NIO's project. Then we have a lot of port activities. ADB project for the coastal resilience, we are part of it. IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, NIO Goa, we are the 3 knowledge partners. CMS, again, it's a major project going on, and CMS is going to expand for another 12 locations all over India. They are going to do what INCOIS is doing or MOIS is doing for the open oceans. A lot of measurements, coastal measurements are going on. There is a need for fixed platforms. The reason I'm saying is that as of now, moored platforms are good for deep sea measurements where we cannot have fixed platforms. But when you come to coastal, wherein in 20 meters or 10 meters, we need fixed platforms. So that's where the issues of theft or issues of cutting of the buoys will be minimal. I don't say it will be there, but because anything in the water is fisherman's property. So we as researchers or scientists, we go and say we are doing for central government. No, doesn't work. So unless we have them on board right from the beginning, none of the research measures, none of these things will work. Another request which we have put up in one of the meeting in IIT Bombay is that we need a geosynchronous satellite which looks at our coast at a high resolution. So that's a must, because all this whatever we are having is having a 17 days or 7 days repeatability. We miss a lot of things. So that's a requirement. When it comes to the solutions, now everybody is looking for green solutions. What is green depends on that day, that minister, that manager. But then as a researcher, as a scientist, we try to give the best solutions to them. And there are a lot of examples. I think my colleague, Professor Sanasraj, will talk about issues of that. I said sand engine is one which is still going on in the Netherlands. So, but then the issue there is from where we get the sand. When we are not having enough sand for even our constructions, where we get for the replenishment, that's the issue. Submerged reefs already, yes, Pondicherry, we have a good example. NIOT NCCR has done that. Another aspect which we are looking at mostly is for where we have the seagrass meadows, beds, then use that as coastal protection measures. That will truly become a green solution. And anything we do cannot be done on its own. It has to be linked with the marine spatial planning, coastal spatial planning of both the local, state, as well as the center. So that has to be kept in mind, as well as to be put in the minds of the managers who wants the projects in their places. Okay, so this I mentioned again. We need to have all the stakeholders right from inception of the project or the work till the execution and further monitoring. So if you don't include them, then none of the projects are going to be successful. Way ahead, yes, we continuously do need the monitoring. There was a question by one of the secretary of Jal Shakti, how long you want to measure at this location? Then I asked, why are we measuring weather every day? Why don't IMD stop? We have done 1 year, that's good enough. We don't need any more. So that's the corollary, I would like to say. Anything we want to measure, unless we have a continuous measurement, all these impacts due to climate change, all these things will not be seen if you have only a short-term data set. So it's a requirement that we need to continuously do it. How we do it, it again depends on the funding. And it should be on high frequency basis. Yes, definitely the technology is changing. We are going up with the AI. Has to come into picture, big data analysis has to come in. And it cannot be done only by one institute or one ministry. I said, though, it's all issues are there. So we need to have a collaborative and concerted efforts to put in which I will say that NCCR has been pioneer in that. They have brought in universities, research institutes, and people from different ministries as well to work together in achieving this goal. I am happy to see that NIOT has put in iShore as one of the project which is going on or started. I think it's there in my next slide. So another thing which we need to involve right from the beginning is citizen science. If you don't involve the citizen or public in the research, and then definitely we're going to have tough times. So right from the school kids, I think parallelly it is going on, appraisal of that. And there are programs like Coast to Snap, wherein tourists come and then click a snap and then upload onto social media. That is being used to do research on the coastal changes or shoreline changes. That needs to be started. I think NCCR is on the, it's looking at that. I think this is my last slide. Yes, we do need modeling exercises, not by one institute, by multiple institutes, and multiple modeling is necessary, especially for the future scenarios. Physics-based definitely is a time-consuming, because I was running a model for Goa, and then for 1 month it was taking 3 days. If I have to do anything for mitigation, no, it's not enough. So we need to go for, it's not about the resources, it's about the input conditions, all those things. Brun rule, most of us know we are working on the coastal erosion models and all. It has been known and shown as it is conservative approach. It's very high. It gives very large recession rates. So there is a need for looking at different recession models. PCR is a probabilistic coastal recession models, which we are working with the Netherlands researchers to look for our Indian coast as well. SLR estimate, sea level, yes, we have values from global, but do we have for regional? So that's where I think NIOT, NCCR, IIT, all those people have to come in to say that yes, for this region, this is the sea level rise, not take directly from the global models. And one more thing we need is that live models. When I say live, as Purnima ma'am was talking about numerical model, when if there is an intervention or if there is a change suddenly, it has to be put in the model. So it should be including data assimilation, input update should be there, and coupling with the forecast. So without these things, we'll be still being there. I think with this, I'll stop my talk.
Thank you, Professor Jayakumar, for your presentation, and also, very clearly bringing out the role of citizen science in some of these issues. I think it has been demonstrated in case of at least the Clean Beach program, where large amount of crowdsourcing of the data has been done, and large amount of, activities has gone into in terms of, identifying the hotspots and then taking actions to clean the beaches. So definitely, I think the points which you have raised are very important and probably needs to be considered in future. So now with this, I think I would like to move on and would like to invite Professor Siraj from IIT Madras to talk about this, his presentation on shoreline management and coastal protection.
So, very good afternoon. So, thanks for the invitation. I join with all of you to congratulate NCCR on their 25th year achievement. And there are many more years to come to reach many milestones. Okay. Now, the ball is set on roll. Definitely, I am sure that not only on the dais, all the experts, those who are the decision makers in the coastal systems, either the planning or the designing the coastal protection. And today I thought of telling a little bit beyond the case studies, because even in the same hall in the last 2 years, I have presented many case studies too. And so that we'll look for way ahead. One important thing is in the last 2 decades, we are seeing the tremendous increase in the coastal system projects. Either it can be in coastal protection or many industry projects, intake and outward systems, ports, many major ports, it's coming up very vast. Needless to say about other fishing harbors and the many commercial harbors and many other systems. Say tourism is also been coming up in large cycle. So this necessitates many of our young dynamic mind scientists and engineers are working in this field. But say 2 decades back, only the experienced scientists and engineers, they have been designing the systems, and of course the experience matters a lot. Now we need to handhold them, our young engineers or scientists, to provide them a proper guideline. That's the need of the hour. Probably the next thrust area NCCR also can take it to power. In that angle, I'm going to make this presentation what has to be defined so that a project can become a very defined project. I am not going to tell successful or so, because we have, all of us can talk about many success projects and also about the failure projects. Failure projects has given us a lot of learning experiences, which is very much vital for, particularly in our countries. Now we are touching about, say, 5-digit long kilometer coastline. Okay. So, and of course, I am dividing into both shoreline management, the first planning, and the next is on the coastal protection. And however, both are, of course, cannot be divided. That's a different thing. So, the need for shoreline management plan and starts from the requirement of the both anthropogenic and the natural and requirements. So, we have tremendous development already said in many different aspects, which our human intervention on the coast is inevitable. And of course, it's for good that we are exploiting the system and in a more positive manner. Or now we are talking about wherever we go, even the land side, even any building, we talk about the green. And needless to say, nature is always working with us, and always we have to take the positive perspectives from the nature, either in terms of the erosion, accretion. Even the accretion is dangerous because the more dredging in a harbor, it becomes the inefficient harbor operations. And associated with the environmental parameters, say cyclonic storms, and we are seeing the climate change has been increasing the frequency and the intensity of the cyclones in Bay of Bengal in particular, and also in the Arabian Sea. And this increases the precipitation during the cyclonic period, in addition to the storm surge, coastal flooding, and aggravate the permanent loss of systems in the coastal area. So, and needless to say, all the physical aspects, the warmer the ocean, and the fishing availability near the coast, if it's not available, we are forcing our fishermen to crossing their limit near shore to the relatively deeper waters. All those things, think for systems, either in terms of coastal protection, other systems go much beyond the shoreline or the near shore water, what we have been thinking of the tens of meters to say 50 or crossing that boundary. Okay. Now, we have to think, and a very important requirement is data. Of course, other speakers also talk about the data, which is a primary important thing. Now, I am trying to say, we have to classify what are the primary data and secondary data. We have been seeing many number of projects, not only designed by IIT Madras and other NAU and NCCR and other associated many departments, etc. And the data are very much ill-defined. Many times, even a recent project also, one project we reviewed, no data or primary data. So all of them are obtained from other secondary sources. So it is a requirement today that these are the data has to be our primary data based on particular purpose. If it's intake outfall systems, that can be different, and coastal protection, that can be different. So I am not going to talk about different types of coastal protection or different types of the systems for harbor, etc. But for each particular functional perspective, it is requirement for the primary data and secondary data. Say, for example, for the coastal protection, the shoreline profile, beach profile, geomorphology for the coast. Of course, this has to be talked about in a little wider forum, and we have to freeze it out. And secondary data, of course, we can allow them to collect the data of environmental data, wave, current, tide, etc. from other sources. And also the shoreline stability. And say, of course, one of the important thing what we are doing, we have a satellite imagery thanks to chair also that announcing its wide databases would be available for the engineering scientific database. Now, so this is typical beach profile that we are taking for a particular coastal protection structures. So oscillation of the beach during different months of the year gives us what is the berm width available at different places. Wide berm during the fair weather season during the severe monsoon time. So that same beach becomes a very steeper beach. And that is on the cross shore profile. Along shore profile, over the month and over the year, we can always measure. But now, there is no proper guidelines that states this is a transect I need every 10 meter or I need every 50 meter or 100 meter. This is nowhere there. So every project, every user, they do it according to their convenience, their funds requirement, etc., which is posing a threat. And of course, most of the time we are talking about, we are passing the bucks to the neighboring coast. Because that's what the primary data sources are very important, which we are missing to use because we are defining something else. Say, recent one project report, bathymetry was never taken, it was designed a ground field for a particular site. And also, the work was awarded and they are trying to do it. And same thing for beach profile, shoreline profile, whether we need the monthly or quarterly or annual data. What's the definition of the highest high water level? And for a particular site, I am talking about a particular site. Next, talking about coming to the remote sensing. And this is a very important, very good tool that we have. And that definitely we have to use it much better way. But the problem is that the transect time during different tidal range level, high tide or low tide, makes to differentiate the shoreline and also to tell this is my erosion rate or the accretion rate. So, but very importantly, there are guidelines are required, particularly there are so many tools, and so many tools we are using it, but still the users' expertise plays a major role in defining these systems. And coming to the modeling, and Bruns model, Dr. Jaykumar also talked about either the cross shore, along the online model, where we tried to predict it. This modeling has a lot of coefficients. Most of us are comfortably using commercial model, where the commercial models are very good for the wave propagation model, etc., where all of us give the same input, same output. But particularly the sediment transport models, and all of us will get definitely a different output. And if you use the default parameters, those parameters will not fit into any coast. So those definition, we need a proper guideline books for with reference to our Indian coastline, all along our Indian coastline for across all maritime states. Now coming to the coastal protection, of course we have many successful projects. So touchwood, I have to say congratulate many teams here in this form for successful projects. But again, now we are talking about different forms of the materials in the name of the environment, or starting from green to gray solution or hard to soft solution, etc., etc. But that is also definitely a need of the hour. And so starting from bubble stone, most of the coastal engineering manual or the rock manual, the definition of the max design, either in terms of the layout or the structural designs, is based on the rubble stones. However, we go for different materials now. Geosynthetic, there is no other alternative material for us going to geosynthetic systems if you avoid the rubble stones. And also steel sheet pile, and of course timber wooden logs are being traditional coastal protection measures at many coastal villages here. Coir based, of course, it's Kerala, it's quite common. And now also we are talking about a lot of vegetation. Most of the guidelines given for the layout design does not follow for the other materials. Say for example, the rubble stones dissipate the wave energy more than 50%. But geosynthetic systems is mostly non-dissipative structures. So the shoreline performance for the same layout will not work out if we change the materials. And we cannot just like that change the materials from one material to another material. There should be a proper guideline for that. That means the selection strategy should be whether is it based on availability or the preferred choice of client or the users, functionality, and there are proven design principles should be there. And of course, we should not do it as for the space concern, because vegetation, it needs a lot of space, which prevents to use vegetation as a very good measuring or protection measures. And of course, the environment is our foremost thought. We have to keep it in our mind, because that's a very primary important thing. Now, I already touched upon this one. The design guidelines, coastal manual, rock manual, still we are following only this part. We need a proper guidelines in Indian context for us. We can always refer these two broad guidelines, which is well documented, but we have to improve our design based on our Indian context, based on the actual design requirement. So, with these things, I will quickly conclude that probably we need a proper guideline, a larger database, or that defined, this is my requirement. So this is what I request, maybe NCCR can take the lead to brought out these guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for bringing out the importance, especially in context of the coastal engineering protection measures, about different materials, and then the need of a set of guidelines as far as the use of these materials for different situations are concerned. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. Now we have the last speaker from the panel, Dr. N.P. Kurian, who is former director of NCCR and a veteran in this area. So I request Dr. Kurian to speak and to share his views with the audience.
So a very good afternoon to everybody, the sports on the stage, off the stage, and my dear colleagues. Actually, at the outset, I would like to congratulate Dr. BRS, Dr. Ramanamurthy, and the whole NCCR team for completing the 25 years of valuable service to the nation. So my presentation here is just confining to a very small topic, that is preparation of SMP. You know that the National Green Tribunal has given directions to all the states to complete preparation of the Shoreline Management Plan, but very few states are ready with the Shoreline Management Plans. So this is a very important task which takes some time, and in this context, I thought I will share my experiences here in doing this work, particularly when I did the project for Karnataka, which I was leading. So next. Okay, I think I will just go. This is the acknowledgements and the sources from which I will be making my presentation here. One is the Karnataka Shoreline Management Plan 2020, and then another one is the Climate Change Adaptation Guidelines, coastal protection for coastal protection and management. So these are the documents I have mostly referred to, and this is the 5 generic policy options, which I think many of the people working in the field are aware. And if you ask me, I will say that start with no action, because that is the best way, because we are acting more and then we are spoiling the coast. This is the feeling that I have. But just for record's sake, the 5 generic policy options which we normally recommend. So this is the environmental softness ladder, which again is an output of the climate change adaptation guidelines for coastal protection. So I will not deal much into that. The different types of coastal protection methods are evaluated, and then they are given category wise based on their environmental impact. So I think I will skip this slide on the preparation of the shoreline management plan. But one important aspect of the shoreline management plan preparation is the identification of the sediment cells. because ultimately you derive your shore management units. The shore management units are the basic units for preparation of the shoreline management plan, and these are derived from the sediment cells. And when we talk about the sediment cells, we have the primary cells where the sediment transport are more or less contained within the cell. Then we have the secondary sediment cells which are semi-isolated. So how to arrive at that? And we have the manual, the record, the document prepared by the NCCR, where they talk about the sediment cells of the west coast of India. And I have made an evaluation of that, and from that I found that the sediment cell identification, of course they themselves say that it needs more validation using data. So I have also come to the conclusion that it needs more evaluation, and we have undertaken some work in this connection, because we can find several geomorphic units which contain sediment transport in the zone, especially if you take Karnataka, Goa, Maharashtra, these coastal sectors, you will find a lot of geomorphological units which contain sediment transport. So we have to take this into consideration, and the primary sediment cells that have to be redefined. So that is the reason why we have gone ahead with this work, and just citing some of the examples why Alibag, one is the one boundary that is given for the west coast in Maharashtra. That cannot be a boundary. That is what we are trying to project here. And then we have one in Etikulam far down south in Kerala, which again cannot be considered as the boundary. So because basically what we are telling is that we need to take the sediment dynamics as the criteria for identification of the sediment cells. So this is just a classification scheme followed by the Black et al. For the Maharashtra Shoreline Management Plan, and which is just based on the distance that is taken. You can see the red line and the green line. So these are taken as the length of the geomorphic units for classifying the sediment cells. And we have gone one step further, and we have introduced the concept of, the what you call the closure depth. So the closure depth is nothing but the zone of intensive sediment motion. Just you can see from the diagram below. This is just a beach profile diagram taken from Thomas, which he has published long back. So you can see that the profile is not intersecting. That means the active zone of sediment transport is still going further into the offshore. So that where these lines, the beach profiles meet, that is the zone of active sediment transport, and that zone we have to take as the criteria for classification of the sediment cells. So we have made some computations, and of course a lot of literature is there in this, and I know that some of my colleagues like Dr. Sheila Nair, they are working on this closure depth for different coastal sectors, and we have done this computation for Surakkal and Gokarna. So I think the details are not important here. The thing is that I want to stress that this concept based on the sediment dynamics, that has to be followed. That is the most important point that I mentioned here, and based on that we have identified the sediment cell boundaries. And then coming to the secondary sediment cells. You know that by definition secondary sediments are semi-isolated. That means some part of the season, say like a monsoon season, we have a very active zone of sediment transport extending up to maybe 15 meter, 20 meter depth and all. But when you come to the secondary sediment cells, that comes during the fair weather period when the sediment transports are confined between smaller units. This is semi-isolated. That means there will be some partial sediment transport during the rough weather period. So we have used the wave breaking as the criteria. And as you can see from that diagram there, you know that the zone of sediment transport extends just beyond the breaker zone. So that has been taken as the criteria. And the distance of the shore management, the geomorphic units are taken based on that. So we prepared the shoreline, the sediment cells for the Karnataka coast based on this category, this method. And then we have subdivided the secondary cells into again shore management units, and say roughly about 5 kilometer. Why this 5 kilometer? It is only for just operational convenience, but keeping the sediment cells into consideration, we have made the sub classification, and based on that we have prepared the shoreline management plan. Now, coming to the another important aspect is the climate change scenario, and we have you know that it is the climate change and the sea level rise is coming as a major threat, and we had the manual that is prepared, and in that we are trying to talk about a concept of minimum beach level. So what is the minimum beach level? And you can see the different parameters that is to be considered. So here actually we are using the projections for climate change. Suppose a coastal structure has got a life of about 25 meter or a 25 years or a 50-year period, then your projections have to be incorporated, and then only we can arrive at that level, which we call as the concept of a minimum beach level. And this concept has been utilized, and we arrive at the level up to which the water can reach. That is the minimum beach level. This is very important in the preparation of the shoreline management plan, and even for the design of the coastal structures, because you can choose any period that you like, 25 years or 50 years or 100 years. The only thing is that the coastal protection structures, you know, you have to tune it according to the life of the coastal protection structure. And this is just an example of this diagram, just to show why this minimum beach level is required, because we can see, you know, the profiles are much below the minimum beach level for these locations. So this is a very important thing that we should understand. That is why many of the coastal locations, they are all inundated during the monsoon season, because the water level, the minimum beach level is much above the level of the beach profile, the BAM level. So that's very important, and we need to arrive at this minimum beach level, and based on that we have to plan the coastal protection and the shoreline management. So we prepared this map for the Karnataka coast, you know, based on which we have arrived at the level of the water level up to which the hydrodynamic parameters will pump the water and cause inundation. And this is a very important thing. I think I will come to my concluding remarks. So sediment dynamics shall be the criterion for identification of sediment cells. Closure depth can be the criteria for identification of primary sediment cells. Headlands or such other artificial structures that jet out beyond the breaker zone during the non-monsoon season can be taken as boundaries of sediment cells. Computation of MBL, a minimum beach level, is one of the essential requirements for preparation of SMP. Climate change projections have to be utilized in computation of MBL and design of shore protection structures. These are my concluding remarks. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kurian, for highlighting the role of sediment dynamics, littoral transport, and then, you know, the sediment dynamics management units, which you have, you know, already very nicely illustrated with the example of Karnataka state. In fact, you know, using satellite images also we have seen, especially the role of river mouths and riverlets, you know, because the fresh amount of sediments which are basically getting into the coastal zone is through the hinterland. Especially during monsoon, you know, huge amount of sediment transport takes place. So in case of beach management as well as you know, designing the coastal protection structures, I think we need to consider the river geomorphologies also. So with this, I think we have come to the end of this, the presentation by the panelist, we still have another 5-6 minutes left before I think we can break for late lunch. And we would like to utilize this time in terms of opening up, this panel discussion to the participants, and maybe it will be good if we can take a couple of questions. So please identify yourself and also identify to whom you are addressing the question. Thank you. Maybe they can be helped in terms of providing mics. Yeah. Okay. Please identify yourself and then to whom you would like to ask the question.
I'm Thomas. Earlier with NSS, rather retired person.
Yes.
And I should request the chair for one more permission here. Ask me to ask questions. Please permit me to make some comments also.
Sure. But be brief, because I am sure all of you are also hungry, and we
One
have to
is,
come back for
when
the
we
next
talk
session.
about coastal protection, the first primary concern for me is that to sustain the existing beaches, because beaches are the best protection measure. So our primary concern should be to sustain the existing beaches, and for that, beach management plan has already been suggested in the CRZ notifications 2011 and 2019. That should be there. Then accountability. It is a self-criticism. Scientists should be ready to take up accountability, responsibility for their designs. In fact, Mudalappuzhi Harbour, I'm not going to explain about it. It has now 69 persons have died there, fishermen. So the people who have designed it, 2 major institutes were involved in it. Government of Kerala was involved in it. There is a responsibility. We have to answer them. We should take the responsibility to answer these wrong designs. Dr. Purnima was talking about the underestimation of the designs. We should take that responsibility. Then regarding shoreline mapping using remote sensing, many people have already told about it. One aspect I always find is that shoreline mapping, when it is done by remote sensing along a coast which is a protected coast with seawalls and other things, always we take the shoreline along the coast, protection measure as the shoreline, and we say it is stable. But many a times it is unstable, and protected coasts are many a times becoming unprotected because of overtopping, then and also it's damaged. But always we take, Dr. Prakash is there, that is why I'm mentioning about that way of mapping shoreline. We have to have a rethinking.
Yes.
Then different results. In fact, Jawahar was mentioning about it. Different results, different methods. In many of these shoreline change maps, I have seen that a shoreline which is a straight coastline, geomorphologically no difference is there, no intervention is there. Even there, a stable coast is shown in between small patches of eroding coasts are there. That cannot happen. That cannot never happen.
Okay,
but
Dr. Thomas. Yeah. If you are through with your comments, if you have any specific question.
Specific question definitely to Dr. Kurian. That is on the coast closure depth. In fact, that is I'm quite fascinated by his statement that the closure depth that we are using is not correct many times. So I feel that we have to go much more than that. That should be there, and the criteria, if we can more specifically give, I would like it. There are many more comments and questions, but stopping here.
No, I fully agree with you. This is just a beginning because the concept of closure depth is something that has to be worked in more detail. Dr. Sheila Nair can tell more. And what I have used here is the inner one. You know, if you talk about coastal depth, there are two. One is the inner one, and the other one is the outer one. If you use the outer one, of course, then we land in more wider coastal zone, which is going to be a problem. That is where we are using the inner one. So the methodology and all those things are again getting updated, and what I have used is the Haller-Meyer equation, which I'm sure that can be replaced with more and more accurate equations. But accurate equations means you need more data, which in many cases is not there. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah. So this is a suggestion as well as a question to Madam Purnima Madam. This is regarding your presentation about Gopalpur coast. You said that the government of Odisha has signed a MOU with you. Recently, we had a meeting of the Odisha Coastal Zone Management Authority, where I am a member, along with Dr. Thomas. Our government of Odisha Water Resources Department is planning to have two, intervention. One is at Haripur Creek, north of Gopalpur town and south of Gopalpur port, another at Markandi. I objected to thumbnail because you said in your conclusion, historical data is important and need-based assessment, what Dr. Kankara also said. They said, when I asked in the meeting, they said we have gone for a national institute, they have modeled and they have suggested for developing a training jetty and groins on the north. I said you are going to destroy the coast because have you assessed the need? Gopalpur Creek is a very small creek. Whether there is a need for such jetty and groins, that is not done. Then historical data. We have been observing the coast for the last 35 years, every month at every 500 meters. I think those information have not gone into the modeling.
Okay.
So this is my,
I just
sincere,
I just respond that the Gopalpur thing, groins and all, NIOT has not recommended. We only did
I
suggested
don't
beach
know.
nourishment, and that's all that was shown. I mean, that is all that is was recommended.
Because
We
NIOT
not-
is involved, many, whoever it is.
Okay. I think you can have further discussion. Sir, you would like to ask?
Thank you. I come from the South Pacific region, which is a group of 18 island countries, and all the countries are surrounded completely by the ocean. Therefore, the coastal management and protection is one of the priorities there. That is the region where there are two aspects always go parallelly. One is the scientific aspect where there are the observations, modeling, and simulations. Not enough resources are available in that direction. The another aspect goes through the community, and this is where the community-based solutions, community empowerments, and those go parallelly. So my little point to Dr. Kankara is because he mentioned in his presentation about the community awareness, how effectively and how intensively in India we give the emphasis over the community awareness plus the empowerment along with the traditional knowledge they are using to help protecting the coastal areas. If I can finish the second one as well. The second one is to Jaya Kumar, and I was very happy to see he mentioned the mangroves as one of the potential plants for the coastal protection. In the South Pacific region, this is also considered as a very cost-effective and then the effective management. It is because it provides the carbon sink, so helps in the climate change. At the same time, it is said that it also absorbs the toxicants of the ocean, like even ocean acidification or so on. I have hardly seen the mangroves here. maybe my observation is very limited. So at what scale there is emphasis over using the mangroves in our country. Thank you.
Yeah. Your first question with respect to community participation, India, this coastal protection started almost 6 decades back. So first 2 decades it was not there, but last 3 decades we have taken the policy decisions in the government of India, and various regulations has come. And those like CRJ, Coastal Zone Regulation Zone, it is there, and it is started in 2.5 decades back, and it is evolving over a time. And all mega projects, this community participation has become a integral part of those projects in planning stage itself.
Like to respond about mangroves and the afforestation.
Yeah, regarding mangroves, if there are mangroves, use it as a protective measure. If there are no mangroves, don't bring and plant it there. It's like taking something else from some other environment and putting a new environment. It is like invasion. So please don't, that's not recommended. Wherever there is a mangrove ecosystem, that should be used as a coastal protection system. You should not bring somewhere else and then say, okay, mangroves is good for protection. Please, that's not the recommendation.
Excellent presentations, and a lot of advancements in the shoreline management has been made. And with all the guidelines which are already in place, CRZ, CZM, etc., and the new knowledge which is generated and getting generated in future, are we in a position to prepare a coastal structural safety atlas? So that is, or if not, what needed to be done to make it? At that SMU, Coastal Management Unit, you said, 5 kilometer. At that level, can we prepare that kind of safety atlas and associated scenarios which can, if development is not stopped, what catastrophe can happen? Thank you.
I think I'll answer precisely for that. Especially when we come to the coast, there are 2 functions for that. One is functional performance of the beach or coast, what we want to have. That how do we achieve that? Second one is the safety of the structure. Earlier we don't have much complication for the safety of the structure because design levels are all more or less fixed. Now this climate change coming into the picture. In fact, when we designed for Chalanam, the height was slightly more than that what was anticipated for the normal condition. Now the question comes at the public, do we need this kind of mega height for that? There is always a what we call as a compromise between design heights and then what we are going to design. But now the concept is adaptability. We design for the less cost at this stage, but that is amenable for the improvement if it is required in the future. That's how now these coastal sectors have been designed, and then new guidelines have to be formed in that manner.
Thank you. Mishraji, I think you can ask question. You are okay,
I'm
maybe
not,
quick one and we'll end with that,
I'm not asking any questions. We know that the causes and effects, everything is known, sir. But in India, if you look at, I see here Dr. Chandramohan, he started shoreline management studies. But what I feel, actually, we know everything, a lot of things we are studying, but as a NCCR, as a National Center for Coastal Research, do you think that we should implement thing, or we should do some basic, what should be the recommendation from the panel? Some basic studies. That means we should go to the, we know the causes, but there is a little bit shift in the wave angle, little bit shift in the title of this thing is going to change entire scenario. So place to place things are different. So what should, as a research institute, we should focus rather than preparing maps always. That can continue. Many institutes are involved, or implementation of program that panel can give some suggestions that will be better, so that we can focus on basic research studies, because still we are using the commercialization, or still we are using whatever the beach erosion board has designed or they have recommended. We have not come up with.
Yeah, I think in the morning when Professor Goel was, giving his talk, I think he partially, talked about it, and he told that it is important to have balance of, the scientific studies, which basically leads to research outcomes, as well as also to have activities which is directly linked with the socio-economic impact of your work. So I think it is up to, I will leave it to the director NCCR to, comment about how that balance has to be struck considering the amount of manpower and resources which you have. And probably in future you can think of enlarging the scope of the institute also.
No, but in fact, Mr. I think which we were discussing also for several times when it comes to the who has to do what and all. In fact, we have a huge coastline. That's what first when we started working with many people. Unless many institutes come together and then work in the same environment, it is going to be a difficult task. Otherwise, everybody will be doing from the start and then go up to 30%, leave it at the stage. So we should have a defined area of who has to do what and all. Mapping is the one exercise to quantify what is happening. Next level is the basic science, which leads to the role of the IIT to go and then evolve a system, what to be done for the basic. But as a national institute, we should have a approach of overall understanding and then have a specific task to be done by this kind of academia and then where we should support for that. That only we can progress to a little bit in the forward paper.
Yeah, and one more thing which was told, that don't think that everything you only can do. This country is large, they have a lot of other institutions, so you can galvanize many of these institutions, bring these problems to them and then try to solve, and then bring also nowadays a lot of, work is happening in the private sector also. So private sector companies are also getting involved. They have a lot of technical know-hows and all, and bring them on board. Don't treat. Yes, sir. Yeah. Okay, Professor.
It is nothing I am going to ask about what they have presented. Yes, they are all the researchers. They give the product. I am trying to implement in the field. We are talking so much about the shoreline management and all. I know last 3 to 4 years, whatever Jay Kumar has proposed shore protection structures, or CWPRS, or Dr. Sannyasi Raj, our group, even Dr. Ramanamurthy, whatever they given, we are not getting clearances for implementation. None of the state CZMA committee entertain shore protection structures. They say you go to NGT and get it cleared. They know very well. So you are being the highest a person, government. You have to bring a clear-cut central government notification, which part of the coastline, what type of protection structures we can have. Then only we can take it forward. I know in Kanyakumari last 5 years, fishermen, they are crying if you go there. So kindly do that, sir, so that we can also take appropriate kind of method of protection and we can implement it at the shortest time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think this is a very good point. Maybe it can be, put as a part of recommendation of this panel. Yeah.
I am Kanthi Madhinathan, former Chief Engineer from Tamil Nadu PWD. Presently, I am in State Disaster Management Unit as a flood manager of our state. So I was in charge of constructions of the Rubble Mount seawall during the late 70s in Kanyakumari district. So that was the first time we are protecting our shore. So next, late 80s, the first cluster of groins were introduced in Ratchakar Street of Kanyakumari. From then onwards, I am involving in so many implementing activities of the coastal protection. So we are talking about shoreline management. So there are a lot of sessions to come. So I have a lot of questions. Because of loss of the coastal wetlands, the flooding problems aggravates in the lands. Because of lot of interventions, in those days, prior to 2000, there was much of constraint, no challenges. After 2000, several constraints, several challenges due to socio-economical and other factors like judicial or legal implications. In spite of that, we are doing our level best from the government level. Yeah. So, near to Chennai, I want the NCCR to look something, to recommend some recommendation for our Mahabalipuram. Only we are doing hard structures to protect the temple, shore temple. So the entire coast is spoiling. So a sustainable
Okay,
model
sir.
should be worked out by NCCR.
I think your point probably NCCR can note, and then
Dr. Ramanamurthy can take suo they can take a study on this Mahabalipuram, our Mahabalipuram.
Thank you for your suggestion. I think with this we will close this interaction session, and I would like to thank all the speakers for providing very valuable insight into this subject, as well as their recommendations and guidelines, and also to the participants of this panel discussion for bringing out wonderfully well the issues and then the recommendations which probably can be listed, and we can think of working on those recommendations. So thank you very much for all of you, as well as all the panelists and all the participants, and maybe all of you are feeling hungry now, so we can stop over here. Thank you very much.
We thank our chair, Dr. Prakash Chauhan, for chairing the session in a productive way. We also thank all the panelists for the fine thoughts and recommendations on the topics associating to shoreline management and coastal protection. We are quite certain that everyone would have got insights to various topics discussed as to how to choose appropriate shore protection measure, the importance of sediment transport and physical modeling studies for coastal management, the role of coastal stakeholders, and the selection strategy for appropriate materials for coastal management, and of course with recommendations to include climate change scenarios. Now I request our director to felicitate the chair, Dr. Prakash Chauhan.
Now we request our director, Dr. M. V. Ramanamurthy, to kindly facilitate the panelists. First, Dr. Purnima Jelihal, Scientist G, NIOT. Dr. R. S. Kankara, Director, CWPRS. Professor Jayakumar Seelam, Chief Scientist, NIO, Goa. Dr. N.P. Kurian, former Director, NSS. We thank you, sir. With this, session 1 on shoreline management and coastal protection has come to an end. We now request all to proceed for lunch in Manthan Hall. Kindly reassemble in Rajendra Chola Hall for climate change and coastal flooding session, and Varuna Hall for interaction with coastal stakeholders at 2:30 p.m. I also request all the state government representatives to assemble in Varuna Hall for interactive session. Thank you.